So good morning and thank you for joining me on this very different act of remembrance. Over the last 6 or 7 years, the numbers of young people and adults taking part in remembrance parades across Tunbridge Wells has increased dramatically. Last year, around 85% of our membership took part in a Remembrance Day parade, including around 500 of us at the town centre service. Now clearly that kind of gathering is just not possible at the moment. But by the wonders of modern technology, we are able to join together to pay our respects and remember all those that have made the ultimate sacrifice in order to protect us and our freedom. Now shortly we will see 2 young people lay a wreath at the town's war memorial on behalf of the district. I would point out that they are a brother and sister, and therefore the current social distancing rules did not apply to them as they laid the wreath together. I would like to extend my thanks to both of those that got up early to enable us to film on their school half-term break, and indeed to all the young people that have played a part in today's service. Now before we take part in the 2-minute silence, I just wanted to reflect on the purpose of today and why it is important for us as Scouts as well as the wider community to stop and take a moment to remember. Now since the start of lockdown towards the end of March, I've heard various comparisons between the restrictions that we face now and those of wartime Britain. Now I guess there are indeed some similarities. Certainly we've all had to make some sacrifices and miss out on things that we've taken for granted. Our ability to travel has been curtailed. Our freedom to visit who we want, when we want, where we want has been eroded. We've even faced some food shortages when we haven't been able to buy the pasta that we wanted perhaps, or we're panicking about the number of loo rolls that we could get hold of. But in reality, do these really reflect the horror of wartime Britain? I think those comparisons, whilst understandable, are perhaps short of reality. But I do think there is a comparison that we can draw. And we can draw that as Scouts and how we have reacted as Scouts to the different crises. Back in both World War I and World War II, Scouts played a massive role in helping their communities, just as Scouts have played a massive role in assisting during the current crisis. Since lockdown, Scouts, and that's the whole family of Scouts, so Beavers, it includes you, Explorers, it includes you, Cubs, you as well, it's everybody in Scouting, have reacted so positively. Now many groups, with thanks to their leaders, were able to continue meeting during lockdown, albeit via Zoom and remotely. That was really, really important and played a huge role in the mental health of young people in the area, and I've received numerous letters and emails from parents and from some schools thanking us for our role in keeping life as normal as possible for young people. Leaders assisted the Nourish Community Food Bank in delivering food parcels, and many of you got involved in collecting food or donating until restrictions prevented that. And some of you got involved the 26.2 challenge around April time to raise funds for different organisations and charities, including Nourish. And I think our fundraising total in Tunbridge Wells was around £1,000. Now this reaction is exactly the same reaction that Scouts many years before us had during the international time of difficulty that was the World Wars. As Britain entered the war on the 4th of August 1914, Baden-Powell considered how his Scouts could support the war effort. He recognised that whilst older Scouts and their leaders could join the armed forces, he felt there was a role for the younger boys as well. He felt they could do their bit, not in a military role, but in supporting other essential services. Now one of the first roles that Scouts undertook was supporting the Coast Guard. The fear of invasion by Germany was a very real threat, and watching the coast, ports and the estuaries was crucial work. Many Scouts volunteered to work on the farms, particularly around harvest time. Remember at the time most work was done by hand and the farm workers had signed up and gone off to fight the war. The role of messenger boy was hugely important in a time before mass telecommunications. Most homes, public buildings did not have telephones, and the telegrams and letters needed to be delivered by hand. Again, Scouts stood in to play that part. There was a desire to support the armed forces, and through the founding of the Scout Hut and Ambulance Fund, Scouts raised money to fund ambulances, etc., and found some innovative ways to raise money. Indeed, one cub pack, for example, spent a whole day collecting acorns. These could be sold for animal feed, you see, and all the money collected from selling the acorns went to the fund. Now, by the end of World War I, the Scouts had made an outstanding contribution to the war effort, both on the home front and through its members that had joined the armed forces. And it was a contribution that was to be recognised at the highest level. David Lloyd George, the British Prime Minister, stated, "It is no small matter to be proud of that the association was able within a month of the outbreak of war to give the most energy and intelligent help in all kinds of service. When the boyhood of a nation can give such practical proofs of its honour, straightness and loyalty, there is not much danger of that nation going under, for these boys are in training to render service to their country as leaders in all walks of life and in the future." And of course, just as many of our adult volunteers had served on the front line in today's crisis, be that in shops ensuring that the essential services can be maintained, or in emergency services or nursing or transport, to name just a few examples, many of our scouting colleagues joined the front line of the armed services, and they paid the ultimate sacrifice. It's estimated that in World War I alone, over 84,000 scouts and leaders had enlisted in the armed forces, and sadly 8,000 of them were killed. Scouts during the war, just as those of today, had to live by their Scout laws. The 5th Scout law is, a Scout has courage in all difficulties. Now, it was this scouting courage that led to 16 Scouts receiving the Victoria Cross, the highest award for military service and bravery during World War I. One of the best known was Jack Cornwall. He was just 16 years old and served on HMS Chester at the Battle of Jutland. His comrades were killed and he was hit in the chest by shrapnel, but Jack stood at his post until the end of the action. Jack died 2 days later in hospital, and he was posthumously awarded the Victoria Cross for bravery. In his memory, Baden-Powell established a Cornwall badge for Scouts who show courage in great adversity, and it remains one of the highest accolades a Scout can receive. Now, a few years ago, a young Cub Scout asked me, how do they remember and pay respect to soldiers they did not even know from so long ago? And it was one of those questions that made me stop and think. And at the time, my answer probably was something along the lines of, you have to show your respect, they died for us, etc. But I think actually it goes much further than that. It is important to remember. It is important to give thanks for all those who gave their today for our tomorrow. But remembrance alone is, in my opinion at least, not enough. Through our acts of remembrance, it's important to learn. It's about the future. It's about living to those same ideals. Those words of David Lloyd George, for these boys who are in training to render service to their country as leaders in all walks of life in the future, could perhaps be better summarised as skills for life. As Scouts, we believe in bringing people together. We celebrate diversity and stand against intolerance, always. We're a worldwide movement creating stronger communities and inspiring positive futures. So my challenge to us all is simple. We will shortly hear the last post, and I will ask you all to stand and join with me in 2 minutes silence. We will see our wreath of remembrance being laid and hear the poem in Flanders Fields. Let us use this time to both give thanks for and remember those that have lost their lives or have been seriously injured defending our freedom, but also to consider how we respond, reflecting our Scouting values, to play our part in a brighter future, using those skills for life, for the good of all.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old.
Go.
They shall not weary them, nor the years condemn.
At the going down of the sun and in the morning,
we will remember them.
When you go home, tell them of us and say, for your tomorrow, we gave our today.
In Flanders fields the poppies blow, between the crosses, row on row, that mark our place, and in the sky, the larks, still bravely singing, fly, scarce heard amid the guns below. We are the dead, short days ago. We lived, felt dawn, saw sunset glow, loved and were loved, and now we lie in Flanders fields. Take up our quarrel with the foe, to you from failing hands we throw. The torch be yours to hold it high, if ye break faith with us who die. We shall not sleep, though poppies grow in Flanders fields.